My name is Julie Pearson Little Thunder with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at Oklahoma State University. Today is Friday, September 27th, 2019, and I'm interviewing Marjorie Lasley for the Chilocco Alumni Association. We're at your sister's home here in Okmulgee, Oklahoma. Marjorie, you're Muskogee Creek, a Chilocco graduate from the class of 50, and you served in the Navy as a nurse from 54 to 56. We'll be talking about your time at Chilocco, your service as a nurse, and some of your career highlights after you finished. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born at Boynton, Oklahoma, and that's where I grew up until I was 14 years old. Went to school there at Boynton.
What did your mother and father do for a living?
My father was a laborer, and my mother, of course, was a homemaker.
How many brothers and sisters?
Well, I can't remember exactly. I believe it's
Four.
four.
There was five of us, so it was four.
Okay.
This is Doris helping here. What was your exposure to Creek language and culture growing up?
I think probably the greatest was church attendance at Grave Creek Church over in Hitcha. That was our probably main affiliation with that.
How did you like school at Boynton? Any outstanding school experiences?
Not that I remember. It just went, fairly well, I suppose a school was supposed to go.
When and how did you end up at Chilocco, going to school at Chilocco?
Well, we were not able at that time to attend many things at Boynton. We didn't have a car and stuff like that. So my mother, I think, kind of encouraged us to attend school. Well, she wanted us to attend school, and I really did. So my sister and I decided that that's what we'd do. And I was 14 when I went to Chilocco and was up there for 4 years.
Did you go the same time as your sister Doris?
Yes. No, it wasn't Doris. It was Frances, my older sister.
The older sister. Okay, interesting. So you went with Frances
Right.
to Chilocco.
Uh-huh.
What was one of the hardest adjustments you had to make at Chilocco?
Probably being away from home because I was only 14, and that was my first time. So I was quite homesick.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I made it.
You had your sister there. Any other students that took you under their wings, sort of? Or?
Well, most of the students, we after you became acquainted with and had some friends, then it was a different situation,
Right.
And that helped. And two, I guess, keeping busy that helped too, and of course going to school. There's a lot of.
What was one of the easiest adjustments you made at Chilocco?
I don't really know what was the easiest adjustment. It seemed like this all was just about the same to me.
Mm-hmm. What were some of your more memorable classes?
Probably music and home economics and weaving. I suppose that the academics weren't that. Well, math sometimes that was of an interest to me, and geography, but I think probably those were my interest.
In music class, were you learning an instrument or?
No, I was in choir, and of course we, had presentations at times.
Did you ever travel with the choir outside
No.
of campus?
Okay. I didn't do that.
What do you remember about the National Guard activities at the school?
The only thing I remember is that they had, I think there were some veterans there, but I don't really remember actually being involved, in that. I just hear about it, and that's about it.
Who were some of your favorite teachers?
the home economics teacher and my weaving teacher, and then I believe it was my math teacher.
And weaving, were you doing what kind of weaving?
Uh, we did belts,
Okay.
and then Afghans. You know, as you got better, you'd go on to a bigger project.
What was the food like?
As far as I was concerned, the food was fine to me. You know.
What did you do for fun?
Well, we would go out if we weren't working. We'd go out to the on the campus in the evening, and of course we had basketball games, and then we'd go to the uh, little area where we would have you could have cokes and stuff like that in the evening, and just just have fun there.
How often did you go home?
At Christmas, and then in the summer.
Mm-hmm. Were you able to catch a ride, or how did you get home?
Well, I guess that I think the buses would bring us to where our families would meet us, and usually it was here in Okmulgee.
Okay. What impact did going to Chilocco have on your knowledge of other tribes?
Quite a bit, because I really wasn't that familiar with any other tribes, and I think probably that was the greatest impact that I had.
What kinds of intertribal friendships? What were some of your most important friendships?
I guess I really didn't pay that much attention to the different tribes. You know, I mean, just everybody was just there. You know, and I suppose I would get concerned after a while, but that really I didn't pay much attention to that.
Mm-hmm. What was one of the funniest experiences you had when you were in school?
I can't really recall that now. So.
Mm-hmm. How about kind of a difficult moment at school?
Well, being late. Sometimes I might run late, get involved with something else, where in the dormitory or something, and then I'd have to hurry and run to school. You know, so.
What kinds of work details did you have?
I think my special one was going to work in the kitchen, but we went so early. But I still like that. It seemed like it was a lot of fun to me working back there, and I think I liked the instructor back there too, so that helped. But then we had work details before we went to school to clean up, of course, where we lived, keep that clean, and we'd have areas like sweeping the halls and stuff like that. So.
How early did you have to be in the kitchen?
I think it was 5:00.
That is early. So what did you do after you left Chilocco?
I attended Hillcrest Nursing School in Tulsa.
Okay, I didn't realize they had their own nursing school.
Oh yes, I went. I think I graduated in May, and was in nursing training June the 10th.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And how long was the training?
3 years.
Mm-hmm. And afterwards, after you graduated from the nurses training?
I worked about, to me it seemed like a longer period than that, but I must have just worked a little bit over a year, because in June of '54 I was in the Navy.
And you volunteered?
Yes.
What prompted you to volunteer?
A teacher at the Hillcrest.
Did she talk about
No, she didn't say anything.
rewards
She just
about it?
no, she it was just her. She told us that she had been in the service, and I don't know. There's something about her that I thought, this might be what I need, So
And she
So-
probably traveled a little bit.
yes, yes.
But it was also the Vietnam War was going to be
No, it
happening
was not
soon. I guess
Vietnam.
it was, probably
Mine was Korea,
50. Okay.
Korean
That's
conflict.
what was going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I really think it was over when I
Okay.
went in, but
Right.
mhm.
Right. Were there any other Native students in your nursing program?
Oh, let's see. I think there's about 4 of us.
That's good.
Mhm.
Good number. And how did you end up choosing the Navy for a
Well,
branch?
because the teacher was from
Oh,
the Navy.
okay.
Yeah.
She was a big
Yeah,
influence.
yeah.
Were you interested in had you been to the ocean? Were you kind of interested in
No,
No.
not particularly.
seeing the ocean or being on
No,
a
I didn't
ship
even know
or-
where I'd go. That just
Right.
be where they sent you.
Right.
So, I did, after I got there, of course, like I just loved the ocean, and the beach. But I never did before going there, no.
So, what was the first place that they sent you when you?
New York,
Okay.
St. Albans, New York, at the Naval Hospital
At
there.
the Naval Hospital.
Mhm.
What was that like? You'd moved from a really small hospital in Tulsa to the.
Well, it was scary because, getting at things and traveling there and not ever being in a big city like that, it was so confusing to me. But yet at the same time, I could always find people that would help,
Mm-hmm.
So I really didn't have that much of a problem.
How did you get to St. Albans?
Well, I know that I rode a train and, rode
Okay.
those, and then a taxi took me, I think, the last bit from the train
from
to the.
Tulsa, basically.
Oh, no, I went from Tulsa.
Uh-huh.
Oh, no, I flew there.
Oh, you flew. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And was that your first time flying as well?
Yes.
A big adventure.
Scary adventure, too.
What was your experience like with the other doctors and nurses at St. Albans?
It was fairly good. It was like any other place.
Mm-hmm.
I think mainly people are the same, but, it seemed like they moved at a faster pace, so that kind of concerned me because I was thinking, well, maybe I didn't quite get what they were having up there because it seemed like they were more advanced than where I was.
Mm-hmm. Were you treating any veterans from the Korean War, even though that was probably over by then? Or who were the patients?
Oh,
at
yes.
St. Albans?
That's what they were treating. Yeah. I went to the Naval Hospital and that's what they had.
Mainly
Yeah.
veterans.
People that were still involved with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Was there any kind of boot camp equivalent for
Well, at
nurses?
St. Albans was.
That's what. Okay.
Yes. We stayed there, I think, for 6 weeks.
I see. And then where did you go after St. Albans?
To Virginia, Portsmouth, Virginia.
Okay. When was your first time going out on the ocean?
I could not remember that.
But maybe somewhere between New York and Virginia there.
It wasn't when I was in New York, I don't believe.
Okay.
Now, I'll take that back because we did go to Statue of Liberty and out there, and I don't really remember making that big of an impression on me, it was the water, but I think maybe where the beaches were, that was where I kind of remember.
So when you weren't working, what did you do for fun out there in Virginia?
Probably out to the beach.
And you've never been in that part of the country before. What really struck you about Virginia as opposed to Oklahoma? What was so different?
I don't know. I don't really know that it was that much different in that, I mean, it was a town, and you could go shopping. So that really wasn't that different. But of course, maybe being near the ocean, was
Mm-hmm.
what we really come to enjoy. That was about the main thing.
Right. And you did 2 years, is that right?
2 years.
2 years there. Did you ever seek out a classmate from Chilocco or run into somebody on the East Coast?
I did, and I don't remember how that happened. It wasn't from Chilocco,
Okay.
but it was an Indian, a lady that had married a man that was in the service, and I don't know how I met them or remember anything about that, but we found each other and we would talk, and I lost contact with them, of course.
Oh,
Yeah.
But you sort of hung out for a little bit
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
That's neat. Did you write letters home or call? How did you stay in touch with your family when you were out
Letters
there?
and telegrams.
Oh, telegram.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Telegrams.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how did it feel when you got back to Tulsa?
Felt a little lost.
You had to readjust.
Yeah, it wasn't as, you didn't have the advantages like you did when you were in the service, I think. In that, you could go to the officers club, have, nice things to eat and all that stuff. And here, you're going to be paying for that, So, and so, you go play tennis, and all over the courts there and stuff like that. So
That's right.
and buy things at the shops.
Little
of course,
perks.
People, I don't remember what they're called, but canteens, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah.
So just back to regular routine.
Yeah.
Where did you find work when you got back?
I think my first job was at VA Hospital in Oklahoma City.
And what kind of an adjustment was that?
Well, it was just because I really worked independence when I was in the Navy. I worked with women and children, and then I came back, and then I was working on the wards with men,
Right.
and I really didn't adjust to that well. So then I was on to something else,
Okay. Yeah. Did you just look for another nursing job?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the next job you found?
I think it was at Baptist in Oklahoma City.
Okay. How did you like it there?
I liked it fine. Mm-hmm.
Were you assigned to any particular, like
Med-surg,
pediatric or just?
Med-surg.
Okay. Yeah. Med-surg. Well, nurses, like other caregivers, can sometimes experience burnout. What kept you going?
Well, I didn't know what else to do. You had to take care of yourself, so.
Right.
So I didn't. I guess I don't know. Burnout was did we have burnout then? Was that even mentioned?
Maybe we weren't allowed to have burnout.
I don't know.
What was one of the most rewarding moments in your nursing career when you felt you've really done service?
You mean over all the years?
Uh-huh.
Well, I don't know if it's even one. Just to helping people, I think is important to me. Help them to get well.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that would be the main thing.
It's a good feeling when they leave. And
because I think that's why I went into it. Because My sister was ill before I finished high school, and she's in the hospital in Muskogee. And when I'd go stay with her, then I'd see the nurses and doctors coming in, and I just felt like that might be something that I would like to do.
That's kind of how you discovered your vocation when your sister was sick.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It is. Mm-hmm.
Now, was this Frances or was this
Frances.
a different sister? Okay.
Frances.
Yeah. Neat. That's a neat story. So, how long have you been retired?
About 22 years.
What are a couple of things that you like doing now that you've retired?
Probably I like being outside, of course, so I have a small garden, but since I'm limited.
So you like garden. You have a little garden. You work outside. That's yes. One of the things you enjoy doing.
And I've always loved music, and I always wanted to play the piano. So even when I was in the service, I took piano lessons.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And when I got out, of course, I didn't have a piano because at the nurses where we stayed when we were in the Navy, we had a piano there. So I said, well, I can just practice here and then go down and take my lessons, and that's what I did. But I never was that good, but I've always tried that, so I still try that. And then I paint some, but I haven't painted in a long time. So
that's neat. How much have you kept in touch with your classmates from Chilocco over the years?
I guess not.
Mm-hmm.
And even in nurses training, of course, I never, I never hear anything from any of them. There's only one. I taught nursing at St. John's for a year, and I have one student that writes to me still.
Oh, how neat.
And then in the Navy, I have one friend that's still from Philadelphia, still sends me a card every Christmas. So
those are important, those long time friendships. Are you a member of any Native veterans groups?
I guess not.
Do you stay, and you've mentioned you stay in contact with some of the people, that one woman that you met in the one in Philadelphia, she was someone that you had met while you were...
We were at Portsmouth together.
Okay.
And we were friends.
Right, in the service.
Uh-huh.
I know you aren't able to make all the Chilocco reunions, but when you do, why are they important to you?
Well, it's nice to see the people that you knew.
How about the Chilocco Veterans Breakfast? Have you been to that event?
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. It's Saturday mornings usually, I think. It seems like sort of mainstream society is trying to follow the lead of the Native community and being more welcoming to veterans now. Do you think things have changed, that attitudes are more welcoming?
I think it's changed very much within the last maybe couple of years.
Mm.
Maybe it just kind of started slowly, I'm not sure, but it seemed like it's really come to the forefront in the last couple of years.
What would you like people to know or remember from either your service experiences or Chilocco experiences?
Well, probably that. Just remember that if you really want to do something and work hard enough, I think you can make it. But I must say it's not going to be easy. But then I don't know of anything that maybe is that easy.
Is there anything else we should talk about that we haven't covered?
I don't think so.
Well, thank you for your service, Marjorie, and thank you for talking with me today.
Thank you.